right, everybody. How we doing? Why don't I hear that still? There we go. I was sitting here wondering why I was hearing that. Okay. Okay, I can hear myself. Just a second. That's weird. All right, I think we cleared that up. Maybe. If not, I may have to try and bully my way through a little bit. Uh, I know what the problem is.
Hey, Kobe.
I know what the problem is. There we go. I was had the live stream open on YouTube, so I was able to hear that as well. So that was
Ah,
really starting to mess with me. I was like, "Where is that coming from?" Anyway, welcome everybody to the inaugural kind of mashup right here with us and the Tide Talk podcast. Stacy Blackwood, Jake Thomas, who you know from Best in the West. We're going to talk about Ole Miss, Alabama. We're going to have some fun. I'm going to wear my Kiffin Art shirt and we're going to drink some beer and just have a good time tonight. How you doing, guys?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm glad to be on here, Steven. I look forward to talking some Bama and Ole Miss. It's going to be an exciting game, and so I think the conversation is going to be exciting as well.
absolutely, man. Thank you for having us on, Stephen. Of course, thank you for all that you do on Willis Digital Media, and just bringing, just dishing out great content. Seems like you're doing something every day now, and so you're a busy man. So we
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, we're already seeing the chat have some life. Little Colby Pittman thing of Bama by 30. I don't know if anybody would turn that bet down, Colby, at this point. Um,
He's
so,
channeling me because I always say Bama by 30, but I said
yeah.
Bama by 20 this week. So
Yeah. What we're going to do tonight, we're going to have kind of a very relaxed thing, but we're going to talk about just a preview of the game. We're going to talk about players to watch, and then we're probably going to talk a little bit about the CBS game and what that means, and now that that is going away, where that's going to be. Um, Angie, hottie toddy, thank you for joining us. Yeah, we've got a YouTube comment and a Facebook comment already, so I mean we're doing pretty great.
and we had 100 in the chat, over 100 last night for SEC at the dark. Stacey, you missed that, but let's try to get that this tonight, guys and gals. We're gonna be here for a while.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun, and we're talking about what are some things, take the fan side out of it. I know you're true blue or true crimson, however you want to put it, Alabama fans, but take that out. If this was just a third party game like Georgia and Arkansas, what's some things that you're expecting to see from both teams? We'll start with Stacy.
Yeah, well, the first thing I do, I try to look at every game from a realistic point of view. I try to take the fan side of it, even when looking at Alabama. But in any game I look at, the first thing I look at is, well, which team has the coaching advantage, which team has the dudes advantage, which teams have the better players, and then schematically I look at the teams and see how they match up with each other. So just looking at this game, you see the matchup between Kiffin and Saban. Kiffin is obviously one of the greatest offensive minds in college football. Coach Saban has built his coaching career on playing really good defense, and Alabama has recruited some of the top players in the country for the last decade. So they've built great depth, in all positions along the field. So that's the way I look at each game. And, that's, talking about, you mentioned the Georgia Arkansas game. That's why, I mean, I think Arkansas can compete, but when it comes down to it, Georgia just has too many dudes. So when I look at any game, that's really what I'm looking at, because the players on the field are the ones who make the plays.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd take the similar approach. You know, and it's kind of hard. I know Saban, he coaching, wise he is still just a little bit ahead of Lane Kiffin. But man, Lane's pretty much the way he's going could be the next Saban in this generation moving forward. But they're both different in ways that they do things. Kiffin, of course, like Stacy mentions, offensive mindset is just spectacular. Saban hones in at secondary. So to me, that we may get to it here a little while later, but matchup wise, that to me that's where the matchup to watch is how Saban's secondary, if they can slow down, that Matt Corral, threat, deep threat, and the passing threat. Because if they can, and it becomes a field day, it's going to be a long day for the Tide in the secondary.
Yeah, one thing for people to keep an advantage. Apparently, Lane Kiffin had a notebook when he was at Alabama, and he followed around Coach Saban. And everything with that defense, that this has given us a little bit of problem. This is something we need to work at. How do we do this? Lane wrote all of that stuff down, and apparently last year he just broke it all out, just vomited onto the playbook, so to speak, and just it was Alabama in trouble all day. Now I think the under in this game is actually the bet at 79 points. I think this is a game that's going to play in the 30s. If it gets in the 40s, I think it's advantage Ole Miss. If it's in the 20s, it's advantage Alabama. And if it's in the middle, who knows? But I'm expecting a game really similar to the 1969 game, the Archie Manning 33-32 game in Birmingham, first primetime game. And that's kind of what I'm expecting to happen. Now, Alabama is going to get better as the season goes on, as Bryce Young gets reps, as everything becomes more cohesive. This team's going to get better and better and better. And the team that plays Auburn is not going to be the team that we see Saturday. Right. But this might be the perfect time for Lane and this Ole Miss team to get them. Real similar, honestly, to 2014.
Yeah, I agree. I think timing is everything. Whether you're talking about in life or in sports, like you mentioned, that and both teams are going to get better as the season goes on. But Alabama is playing so many young guys on offense, or even if they're not young guys, they're playing more prominent roles than what they played in the past. When you talk about guys like a John Mechie, who's a junior and has played some, but now he's the guy. And so, like you said, this team has a lot to improve on, especially offensively with all the youth and inexperience. And like you said, right now they're not the same team that they're going to be, once they play Auburn or LSU even a little bit later down the road. So you're right. The timing is good for Ole Miss. They have the offense that they need to beat Alabama. So it's all there. And it's just now about putting it on the field. And, when you step between those white lines, anything can happen.
Especially in the SEC,
Right.
I mean, you see upset, 2014, like you said, Stephen, comes to mind because unfortunately I was at that game when they went to Bryant Denny and beat us, and
No, that was 15. 14
that
was
was
the game
15,
in Oxford.
yeah,
Yeah, this is
that's
Cody
right.
Perry
The
game.
15, yeah, the 15 was the one in Bryant Denny, but yeah, I was there at that game, so I remember how Chad Kelly just
That was a
went
crazy
over.
game.
It was.
I mean, Alabama started Cooper Bateman
Yeah.
for some explicable reason. So just that was just a weird. I think Alabama had 5 turnovers in that game.
Yeah.
Of course, that play where Kelly fumbles the snap in the shotgun, he gets hit as he throws it up in the air, bounces off guys, and just a
Catches it.
crazy game. And you know, sometimes that's what you got to have to win. I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah.
just the way it is. And uh, give Ole Miss credit back then that they took advantage of the turnovers in that game from Alabama. And but like Steven mentioned, that 2015 team at the end of the season was much different than what that Ole Miss team faced that night in Bryant Denny Stadium. So a good because it's very similar. Jake Coker was just becoming the starting quarterback. Uh, and Alabama was kind of trying to learn what type of offense they needed to be. And of course, they started relying on Derrick Henry that season, and we all know what he done going on to win the Heisman. So, yeah, it's crazy how similar these two seasons are when you look at the 2015 Alabama team on offense compared to this 2021 team. Of course, it's a little more explosive because the style is different and all that. But as far as the youth and inexperience on offense, it's very similar for Alabama.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Real quick, we're going to change the subject briefly here for a second. Why do you think that the national media and national analysts are so quick to want to throw dirt onto Tua's grave and to say he
My
can't do it?
gosh.
It's
Yeah.
utterly ridiculous. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. He genuinely is. But why do you think they want to do that? It's crazy. Every other rookie quarterback gets some rope. I mean, Peyton would
Yeah.
have games where he'd throw 5 interceptions. He might be the greatest quarterback that's ever lived.
Right.
And Tua comes out and throws one. It's like, well, there it is. That's proof that he can't do it. Bench him. Doesn't make any sense.
It really doesn't. I can't explain what the reasoning is because, like you mentioned, rookie quarterbacks get the benefit of the doubt. I mean, look at the way Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson have started out their rookie seasons, and I mean they've already passed how many interceptions Tua threw last year, and it's just they just get a pass. They're not even. I mean, nobody's batting an eye over their play so far, and like you mentioned, Tua throws one interception, and they're just ready to. He's done. He can't be an NFL guy. I'm not sure what the answer is, but it really is mind-boggling. I don't get it at all.
They start screaming, "We got to trade for Deshaun Watson." No, you don't. No. Give him time and let him learn. I mean, they all offensively the Miami's really young. I mean, they got some young receivers. I think they got a young offensive line. So let this group grow together, and in a few years, that team's going to be dynamic. If they keep everybody and pay them. So
Well, they
that'd be
need
fine.
to sign some veterans up front along the offensive line.
Yeah,
They got cap space, and they need to help Tua. I
right.
mean, it's just kind of Saban talked about all fall camp that the team around Bryce needed to play better. Maybe it's not so much Tua right now. Maybe it's the guys around him needing to play
Yeah.
better, especially the guys up front. They
Mhm.
don't protect him the way they should. And like Jake mentioned, they are some young guys along that offensive line. But Miami needs to make some moves. Getting some veteran and improving talent on the offensive line to help Tua.
Yeah, and also, in my opinion, they need to find an offensive coordinator that will do what he's good at and try to instead of trying to pigeonhole him
Yep.
into a certain type of offense. To me, he is Drew Brees. He's
Yeah.
basically Drew Brees, and he would be that in that system. But he doesn't have a Sean Payton right now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you know, you get him in a system that he thrives in. Last year he was throwing it down the field, and then have a big explosive play. Then they would make him throw like just 2 or 3 yard ends. For a couple series. I'm like, man, what you doing? You can throw it downfield. They just handicapped him. It seemed like so.
Well, systems matter in
Right.
football, and I think, and it's not just Tua. There's been plenty of quarterbacks who were, just kind of hung out to dry because they were in the wrong system, and the team or the organization did not put the right staff in position and the right system in place for that quarterback to succeed. So I think that's happened to more guys than just Tua.
Yeah, 10 years ago, Lamar Jackson would have been cut in his rookie year,
You're right. You're
and he
right.
would have been out of the
Yeah.
league.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, anyway, let's get back to the game. We kind of went off on an NFL tangent a little bit. Now, what are you guys looking for from the game? What do you want to see from Alabama? What do you expect to see from Ole Miss in this game?
Go ahead, Jake.
Stacey.
Oh,
Oh,
you want
okay.
me to go?
Go ahead, Jake.
Okay. From Alabama, I want to see how the defense steps up. I mean, you can look back all through the summer on our podcast. You can look back. You know, we did a season preview, and I've been high on the defense all summer and early part of the season because I mean they're very veteran down out there. There's a lot of experience on the defense side of the ball, but it just has not come alive yet. Defensively. I mean, we're still giving up big plays. We thought Toa would come in. He kind of had a tough game against Florida, out of position a bit. But there's so much experience on that defensive side of the ball that they've got to come together eventually and start playing within themselves like we know they can be. Because I mean, on paper with all the talent, they could be a top 5 defense. So maybe that starts this week, but I mean it's a tall challenge because you're going to have Matt Corral throwing all over the place. So I think if they get at least 3 stops in this game, I think Alabama has a clear chance to win. And but it's going to take at least 3 to 4 stops.
Wait, are you suggesting, if you're going by the Alabama by 20 prediction that you have made all week, that Ole Miss will only stop Alabama one time?
I don't know.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I'm just trying to one up everybody since all you guys picked Ole Miss, but but honestly, I actually picked 42-31 in another league this week on that game.
Okay.
I just think late Alabama gets a couple of touchdowns late because of fatigue and all that. Because honestly, you guys are not as deep as Alabama yet.
No, not even close.
Right. So
we're not as thin as Arkansas as we
Right.
saw against Texas A&M. They were razor thin. Whenever KJ got hurt and
Yeah.
Trayvon Burks got hurt, they just couldn't do anything offensively. And so
Right.
they were razor thin. We're not quite there, but we are fairly thin. How about you, Stacy?
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I'm with Jake, the defense has been a little bit. I don't want to say disappointing because the season is still so young, and if Alabama comes out and plays, an A+ or an B+ performance against Ole Miss, when arguably one of the best offenses in the country, then your whole perspective can change. So I don't. I try to look at the season as a whole before you really judge what a team is because But right now the defense has not performed to standard, to the Alabama standard anyway. And so I want those guys to play better. Obviously, they got to play better than what they did last year against Ole Miss, and I think they will, simply because they've had a taste of the Lane Kiffin offense, and they have some film to work off now. Compared to last year when Lane was in his first year as the head coach at Ole Miss and just a couple games in, so it's a little bit different preparation for Alabama this year. So I think the defense will play better, simply from that standpoint. But offensively for Alabama, they're going to need to maybe play a little more ball control. I do think time of possession is a little overrated nowadays with the hurry up offense, and teams are able to hit big plays and score quick. So time of possession is not huge. Number of plays is what matter.
Yeah.
And especially when you're playing a team like Ole Miss, who's a little bit thinner along the depth chart than what Alabama is. So maybe Alabama relies a little bit more on the running game this week to kind of shorten the game a little bit, and also try to wear out that Ole Miss defense a little bit. Ole Miss has switched their defensive style this year. They're playing more like Arkansas plays. So it's going to be interesting to see how Alabama attacks that, especially with a young quarterback who hasn't really played a defense like that yet. So it's going to be interesting to see that aspect. For Ole Miss, it's all about Matt Corral. I mean, if Matt Corral is on his A game, it's going to be tough for Alabama to stop him. I mean, he's you can make the argument he's the best quarterback in the country. So they got really good skill players too. I mean, you talk about Jerrion Ealy, he's one of the better running backs in the country. Drummond's a great receiver. Mingo is a great receiver. So they have guys all over the field on offense, and they're going to make plays. But it's about, I talked to somebody, it's about limiting the explosive plays and then playing really good red zone defense. So if Alabama can do those two things, they're going to give themselves a great opportunity to win the game.
I was going to say real quick, Stephen, defensively, Saban always talks about, one game at a time. But after that performance last year, he was not happy. So, it's kind of funny. Everybody talks about how Lane has this circuit on his calendar, and I'm sure he does for all year. I'm sure Saban had this circuit on his calendar this week too, because I know he was embarrassed on how the defense played last year against you guys. Yeah. So I agree. I do not think it's going to be that high scoring game this year like it has been. I think both defenses won't let it get into the 50s. It might not be in the 40s. So I think there's going to be more sound plays on both ends of the defense this year.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I'm looking forward to. I think Alabama's going to run the ball. Their best offense or best defense is going to be keeping Matt Corral off the field.
Absolutely.
So they're going to ground and pound a little bit. Now in this game, I do expect special teams to play a role. In 14 and 15, Ole Miss recovered a fumble on a kickoff when Bama was returning a kickoff. In 16, a punt return opened it up for Bama that allowed them to come back. Javonte Williams is averaging 7,000 yards a kickoff return right now and about 7,000 yards per reception. He's the game breaker. Everybody thought it was going to be John Mechie, but it's turned out as like I've already forgot the name. I think Jameson Williams.
Jameson Williams, yeah.
I have so much problem since my brain surgery with remembering names. I said progression like 4 straight times in the same sentence and couldn't remember the word progression. Right, it was absolutely crazy. Yeah. But that's the player that I'm actually really worried about. I'll sit here and think about the game and start to play it out in my mind and everything, and it's almost better just to kick the ball out of bounds. Because he can hurt you so much on kickoff returns, and we're struggling right now on kickoff return coverage.
It's funny you said that on our Southern Miss recap. Jake and myself were talking. If we were the opposing teams, we would just kick the ball out of bounds and let them take it at the 35 or 40, whatever it is. I mean, that's better than letting Jameson Williams house it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot of Mike Wallace. I don't know if y'all remember him at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
He reminds me a lot of Mike Wallace.
Just that top end speed is world class. I mean, it's unbelievable. And if he has any open field, you can just hang it up. He's gone.
Yeah, there was a couple of on one of those touchdown runs. Somebody actually had a pretty good line to him, but he just outran him to that point, and he was gone. So you've got to make sure
there are no good angles on a guy with the speed of Jameson Williams.
No.
I mean, he's just that much faster than everybody else.
Again, I say this all the time. Thank you, Ohio State. They said he was like 4th on their depth chart. That's why he transferred.
Yeah, Joe Burrow was 3rd.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. But one of the traps that Alabama might fall into is Bryce Young leaning on Jameson Williams and that threat of a deep shot. And that defense is designed to bait you to throw it downfield.
Absolutely.
As Matt Corral found out in Arkansas last year.
Right.
And that could be some kryptonite in this game. There could be a sudden change. There could be a turnover or two that results of basically a young quarterback getting greedy.
Yeah, that's why I brought up the change in defensive, scheme for Ole Miss that's the new look for Bryce Young. He hasn't faced that yet. I know Arkansas played it last year, and he did play. Alabama was beating the dog out of Arkansas, so he got to play towards the end of the game. But it's different when you're the guy and you have to play, to win the game instead of coming in after the game's already decided. So I am anxious to see how he handles that. So far, I mean, it's hard to complain about the job that Bryce Young's done. I mean, he was able to go in there to Florida, and of course the last 2.5 quarters were not pretty, but the first 3 possessions they just marched right down the field and score like they were playing 7-on-7. So it's I'm anxious to see how Bryce performs against a different type of defense than what he's used to playing. And also, I mean, this is a big time game. He knows that his defense is going to be challenged in this game with Matt Corral and Lane Kiffin. So does he put extra pressure on himself to try to deliver, a touchdown on every possession? And that kind of goes to what you're saying, Stephen, as far as trying to hit that big play to a guy like Jameson Williams. So I'm hoping that Alabama tries to lean on that running game a little bit, tries to find those tight ends. Billingsley and Latu are really starting to play well together. Billingsley, the last 2 games, has caught 6 catches for 130-something yards and 2 touchdowns. So he's come on strong the last couple of days or a couple of games, and Latu has been solid all year. So does he rely on those guys and the running game? I think that's going to be key for Alabama offensively.
I'll say on the flip side for Ole Miss, if you guys focus on Mechie and Williams and leave Latu or Billingsley wide open, in a flat or on a seam route, you're going to be in trouble. So there's those two. Billingsley for a guy his size can actually move pretty quick. So,
Mhm.
I believe he's the X factor in this game. For me, offensively, he's been getting hot here lately. He seems like he's out of the doghouse, which is great to see because he's a mismatch problem on defenses when he's out on the field. So
Yeah, he's Evan Ingram.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
Mhm.
So they, you got to keep an eye on him and Latu because those guys are really good. And you said you really like Latu, Stephen, last night. So
Yeah, yeah. He just looks a little bit different playing that tight end position. He does
mm,
some different things than you've seen from an Alabama tight end. He's
yeah,
not Billingsley, but he's almost like a Mark Bavaro type guy. If you think about back in the day, type of tight end that he's just
Way
a
back.
kind of a brawler.
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to kind of flip this a little bit, Stephen. What are you looking for Ole Miss to accomplish both offensively and defensively in
hmm
this game? Kind of what are your expectations for each side of the ball for Ole Miss? Obviously, this game in today's football, it's all about offense. I mean, I'm a
Oh yeah.
defensive guy because I'm an old school football type guy. So it I enjoy the offense, but there's nothing better to me when a team is playing elite team defense. That is just so satisfying to watch. But that's not going to be what happens Saturday.
No.
So what are your expectations for Ole Miss and how they are going to attack Alabama offensively and defensively?
I think that Matt Corral and the wide receivers. This is an offense that tortures linebackers. If you have a linebacker problem, these guys are going to take advantage of it because if you're going to drop back to coverage, Jerry and Ely or the other running backs going to get the ball. If you come up to do the run fit aggressively, they're going to hit the space in between the linebacker and the safety
hmm
that Florida took advantage of over and over and over again the other night or the other weekend. Now, the main thing I want to see is the offense to play clean. They haven't played clean this season. That's the scary thing. They've had a problem with penalties, and an occasional turnover would pop up as well. So they haven't played to what you would expect them to play at. They haven't hit that level yet, and that's pretty scary. I don't think that level will get here in Bryant Denny. It's going to be the first time playing in front of a crowd in 18 games or something like that. And so
Point.
that they're going to have to get used to that. They might go a little bit slower because of that, and if they go a little bit slower, that could be an advantage for Alabama's defense. Defensively, I just want them to provide resistance, make a play, get a turnover or two, force field goals in the red zone. If that happens, and if they can get the lead, if they get up 14-0 on Alabama, this game might be over because I'm not sure if Alabama is going to be able to catch up. And that is absolutely ridiculous to say out loud.
Yeah, but you're right because once Alabama would start the defense would be reeling. Then if they're down 14-0, then Bryce Young is going to be pressing. The offense is
hmm
going to be pressing. So yeah, I mean that would be a bad situation for Alabama. Uh, Defensively for Ole Miss, who is? I mean, I haven't been able to watch Ole Miss yet this season, but a full game. Who is a guy defensively that's kind of the playmaker for the defense?
Chance Campbell, he's come in and completely reworked that linebacker. Him and Lakia Henry. He basically shut down Malik Cunningham in week one, just spying
Yeah.
him as a linebacker, and caused all kinds of problem and just completely took their offense out of sync. Now, some of that is them not preparing for the defense that they saw. They just had
Yeah.
to do it as it came. So the first at halftime they were able to change a little bit and find some things that works, but they fell into that trap a little bit of going downfield because they got down so early. So that is the trap of this game. But Chance Campbell is the defensive guy to keep an eye on. Otis Reese is a former top 50 player, Georgia transfer, extremely physical box safety. And if Jacob Springer is healthy and plays in the game, we haven't actually seen the defense with both of those guys because it is set up to where both of our box safeties, Otis Reese and Jake Springer, at the line of scrimmage, which essentially makes a five-man front and completely can change the way the defense plays.
Yeah, and I just lied. I watched that Louisville Ole Miss game. I just completely forgot about that
Yeah.
game. That seems like forever ago.
It
When a
does.
team has an off week this early, you kind of forget about their season to that point.
hmm
But I totally forgot about the Louisville game. Yeah, and I guess that's how I knew that they had changed their defensive scheme was watching that game. But yeah, I'm excited to see how. That's probably one of the most things I'm most excited about is how Bryce Young, Bill O'Brien, and that offense attack that defense because it's different. I mean, really, Arkansas is one of the team that really introduced that type of defense to the SEC. So I think Iowa State is another team that plays that style of defense there in the Big 12. But yeah, I'm looking forward to
Baylor
that.
got to a Sugar Bowl playing that defense.
Right?
That's
Yeah,
true.
that's true.
Yeah.
And along the offensive line, I keep it recruiting a good bit. Ole Miss is so crazy, and it goes to show that offensive lineman is maybe the most developed position out of all the positions on the football field. Ole Miss's offensive line, all five of them are former 3-star players, but you could make the argument that right now they're a better offensive line than what Alabama is, and so
Yeah, they're really good.
yeah, they're a really good offensive line. So, but to me, it's not about the star ratings because the offensive line is so hard to evaluate because it's such a developmental position. I mean, when you're 17 years old and you're 6'6", 300 pounds, you don't know how to use that body yet.
Right.
I mean, it takes you a couple years, and so the offensive line. I just happened to look at, and I remember these guys being recruited and all this. I'm like, man, them are five different 3-star players, and they're one of the better offensive lines in the SEC. So it's just crazy how that works out along the offensive line. I think that's a big factor for Ole Miss in this game as well.
Yeah, and also Orlando Amana playing center last year with Ben Brown playing center. That was 3 games into his center career
Yeah.
playing that. Now he's a great right guard. He's not a center. A former All Pac-12 honorable mention guy comes in playing center, and it's improved the operation.
Yeah.
Now the snap can come back to the quarterback just a split second faster, and that's going to increase the timing even a little bit more and stress the defense, as opposed to somebody like Ben Brown who was forced to loop it in a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Alabama's kind of had, and I remember last year in that game there was at least one bad snap in that for Ole Miss in that game last year, wasn't
Cost
there? I
them the
mean,
game.
Yeah.
yeah, I thought that had happened, but yeah. So that's the offensive line is going to play a big role in this game. Of course, Ole Miss, they do take deep shots, but they do get the ball out quickly in some occasions too. So, but Jerrion Ely is another guy for Ole Miss. I really like him. He's one of my favorite players in the SEC. I think what's crazy. He might be the most underrated player in the SEC. Maybe outside of the leading rusher in the SEC, Rodriguez up at Kentucky, who nobody talks about, and he just, he's leading the SEC in rushing. So uh, I really like Ely. I think he could be a difference maker in this game as well with the way that Florida was able to run the ball against Alabama. Maybe that's something that Ole Miss tries to exploit as well.
Oh, they absolutely will. Ole Miss is there's a big misconception amongst people that Ole Miss is a passing team. Ole Miss is a 60% run team. There's more rushing attempts that Ole Miss has made this season than any other team in the Southeastern Conference.
Yeah.
So it's just Lane Kiffin does an excellent job, as you guys remember, that whenever you come up to try and mess with that run that's going to happen, he's going to double move you and take a shot over the top. There's about 10 plays a game that I call Lane Kiffin plays, and they're from that Norm Chow playbook designed to get a player open deep and basically try to win a one-on-one matchup on the outside. And that is where the passing yardage comes from. The rushing yardage is what kills you.
Yep, you're right. And where it kills you at is that the offense is able to stay you know in a good down and distance. I mean, you get a good run on first down. When 2nd and 5 is much different than 2nd and 8, and
Oh
so
yeah.
that the ability to run the ball in that Lane Kiffin offense, like you said, is huge because you get a good run on first down, you get 2nd and 2. There's you a good opportunity to take a deep shot, and so that's what Lane Kiffin is made his money on. Being a great offensive play caller that he is, and he done that at Alabama. I mean, even with a guy like Blake Sims, who was really a running back playing quarterback, and he put up just crazy numbers there with Lane Kiffin. So uh, it's amazing the job that Lane Kiffin does calling plays. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen a better play caller than Lane Kiffin.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Who's a couple of players from Alabama that we might not be thinking about that are primed to take some? Is Brian Robinson Jr. back this week?
Yeah, he
Yes, he
looks to be
is.
healthy. He's practiced all week, so I would assume he's going to be back. And he's kind of had an underrated season. I know he missed last week, but he's averaging nearly 6 yards a carry. He just hasn't had the amount of touches that you would really like to see. But yeah, he'll be back. I really like Jace McClellan and Rodell Williams too, but it's just the offensive line has just been a work in progress so far this year, and they're playing better each and every game, and so they should have their best performance of the game of the season against Ole Miss because it's just the next game that they're playing together. But as far as a guy to watch out for, I'm Jake talked about how a guy like Billingsley could be the X factor because of Jamison Williams and John Mechie. I'm going to go the opposite. I think a guy like John Mechie could be the X factor because Ole Miss is going to be. They don't want Jamison. They're not. They're going to do their best to not let Jamison Williams get over the top. And John Mechie has caught a lot of stuff underneath, whether it's a bubble screen, or a jet sweep, or a 10-yard dig. He's caught a lot of balls that way. That's what he's averaging around 12 yards a reception or so. So I could see John Mechie, having a game where he has like 8 to 10 catches for, right around 90 to 100 yards, which is not just a huge game, but that's the difference in, picking up a first down or not. Maybe he's a guy that Alabama relies on to pick up a 3rd and 8 on a 12-yard dig or, a post or something, nothing too deep. I just feel like John Mechie could make a few conversions for Alabama that could be key conversions in the game to keep the drive going and like you say, keep Matt Corral off the field.
Yep.
Yeah, I got 2 points I want to make. You Steve was talking about misconceptions, and me and Stacey's talked about this. There's a misconception about our running backs about not being able to run the ball good this year. I mean, Robinson is averaging about 6 yards a carry. Jace is about 5. Sanders is about 4.5. So I mean, the reason why I think people are saying that is because it's not Najee. There's not like one like star running back this year, but collectively they're all doing very quietly doing really well. So they all get I mean, gosh, Robinson and Jace probably get most of the carries, so they're probably splitting 15, 20 each.
Well, and
And
Rodell Williams, Jake, he's actually the third leading rusher on the team, and he's
yeah,
averaging 6.6 yards per carry. So
right,
uh,
yeah,
I think it's gotten better the last couple, over the last. The Florida game was really a weird game.
it was,
Alabama got up so much in that game, and then they never really had the ball. It felt like
yeah,
after they got up 21-3. They went
hmm,
3 and out on 3 straight possessions after going up 21-3, and then it's halftime. And
yeah,
and then Alabama was just kind of reeling the rest of the game, so they were never in a good offensive flow. So, but talking about the run game, when I started to feel better about the run game was actually in that Florida game at the end of the game. Alabama stops Florida on the 2 point conversion, and they had to pick up at least one first down,
yeah,
or Florida's going to win that game. They had all the momentum, and
hmm,
Alabama run it 3 straight plays and got a first down with Brian Robinson.
hmm,
So, when you have to run it and you can run it, and the other team knows you're running it and you can still run it, that's when you start to feel better about your running game. So, I think the running game is going to be okay. I think it's going to get better each and every week. And it was unfortunate that Brian Robinson kind of got dinged up because I thought he was really starting to kind of come into his own as kind of that feature guy. But I feel better about the running game right now than I did, 3 weeks ago, I guess.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Well,
the other,
go ahead.
other, yeah, the other thing I wanted to make was on Bryce Young. You know, I think it could be a blessing in disguise that he did, even though it wasn't his fault, he did throw that pick last week because it's not in his mind anymore. So he just got there and play ball now because it seems like he had what 15 touchdown passes without an interception. So he was like, my gosh, my next throw could be a bad one and I get picked off. Now he don't have to worry about that. He just go out there and sling the ball and just let loose. So that may be something to look out for too.
All right, let's go into the chat room a little bit and find out what they're talking about. When's Trey Sanders coming back? I haven't heard much of him. That's from Colby Pittman.
Well, he's not. I mean, he's not injured
No.
really. He's just been passed over on the depth chart. I mean, Jace McClellan's ran better, Roydell Williams has ran better, and of course Brian Robinson has ran better. It's just a matter of there's guys that are in front of him right now that are just playing better. So, I mean, I think it's really that simple. I don't think he's injured. He actually got into the game against Southern Miss a little bit toward in the fourth quarter, so he's obviously not injured.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people need to remember that Alvin Kamara ended up transferring out of Alabama because of Derrick Henry. There's dudes in front of him blocking his way.
Well, and he's coming off an injury that, I mean, after that car accident, I mean, he broke his hip.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's even if he's at 80% right now, his 80% is not going to be good enough to beat out a guy like Roydell Williams or Jace McClellan. So he's going to have to get back to 100%, and that's probably not going to be until next season. So, I really wouldn't look for his role to be, real significant until the 2022 season.
All right. Tim Nicely says, looking forward to a great game. A little worried about so many people picking the Rebs to win, though. We all know what that means. Very important, formative show. Good to hear differing opinions. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
That does make me nervous, all these people picking Ole Miss. And maybe that's just being an Ole Miss fan my whole life. I'm not really comfortable with the spotlight at this point.
Well, I'll say this. One thing I'm happy about, and Lane Kiffin tweeted about it, is the fact that game day is not coming to Tuscaloosa.
Yes.
I hate when game day is at Tuscaloosa. I just feel like it's a major distraction for the entire team. I mean, to me, game day is about getting ready for the game, and you can't get ready for the game when ESPN is there and they're trying to get an interview here and an interview there. So I was so thankful when they decided to go to that Arkansas-Georgia game.
I do think game day, they're going to do stories about that game. SEC Nation being in Tuscaloosa, they're going to do stories. There might be about you might not get the benefits of having game day, but have to deal with all the stuff that goes along with game day.
Yeah. By the way, did y'all catch the little the Manny cast that they did on Monday Night Football the other night?
I saw the double birds.
Yeah, that was. But they interviewed Saban the third quarter, and I didn't get to see it because I don't really watch the NFL much.
He was on Windows 95.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, it's like on Atari. But everybody was talking about how he just got up from his seat before the commercial break. I mean, he was ready. He's like, I got game film to look at. So I mean, it was just pretty funny. But that's just Saban's character. He's focused on the task at hand, and he knows it's going to be a tough task this week. So, he's got to be all focused. So
that's a little bit weird because you can see that Saban is genuinely concerned about this weekend.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of times he plays lip service to whoever he's playing, but he just knows. But he's saying things like, "We need the fans to be in the stadium early and be loud." And it was like, "Whoa, this is kind of a new thing." For Alabama, but maybe it's just come off of the Alabama fatigue of them being so good in 19 and 20 and even in 18. I don't know, but it was interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I watched his every Thursday night. He has a call-in show. Hey, coach, and he was, and I'll be honest with you, he was pretty chill tonight compared to most weeks. I mean, he was very relaxed. I'm not sure if it even means anything, but he just looked more relaxed than he did earlier this week. And he was really talking about how the preparation for Ole Miss is really what is so complicated because there's so many different ways that they can beat you. And he knows that Lane Kiffin is going to throw absolutely everything at him. Yeah. So I think the preparation is where Saban has been most concerned because it's probably been very time consuming. And I think he's probably just looking forward to getting to the game, regardless of how the game plays out. He's just ready to kind of get the preparation of it over with because it is such a tough preparation.
I think he said during the show tonight that the team has practiced really well, and they've just been really focused, which was great because the last couple of weeks, he said that they've not their focus hadn't been there, especially during the week leading up to Mercer. So you know
Well,
maybe just
if you
maybe
can't be focused for this game, then I'm not
right
sure what you're doing on scholarship at Alabama. I
exactly.
mean, or for Ole Miss either way. I just if you can't get yourself ready and prepared for this game, then what are you doing being a competitor at this level? So
I
that's
mean
just kind of my 2 cents on that.
this game honestly has playoff implications because if Ole Miss beats Alabama, I think they beat everybody in the West, and then they play Georgia in the SEC championship game. And if Alabama wins, then they could still lose to Georgia, I think, and still get in the 14 playoff. So there's a lot right on this game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I really am. And listen, Lane Gerbig on the chat asked, "Is it the hand and footwork? Why are the linebackers off at Alabama?"
I just think it's just lack of execution. I'm people like to pile on Pete Golding, but and I guess in a way he is a little responsible for the execution of the players, but guys like Christian Harris and Henry Toa, they have no excuse not to execute. If they're not
Right.
executing, that's on them. I mean, they've
Hmm.
played enough college football that they need to execute. And I don't want to be on here talking about college athletes, but I mean that's just the fact of the matter. I mean they've both played enough college football to know what they need to be doing. And if they're not doing what they need to be doing, then maybe that's where the change needs to be made, not the coaching staff.
Yeah,
I think schematically Alabama is doing what they need to do. I just think the execution has not been there for whatever
Right.
reason.
Yep.
yeah. I think that offenses in general, we talk about Ole Miss's offense torturing linebackers. Most everybody that's running offense knows how to attack linebackers, and there's a way you can do it to where the linebacker can't be right. He's
Right.
going to make the wrong mistake. And Henry
Exactly.
Toa is coming in. These guys, they're extremely talented, but with what's going on, this is just putting them. They're taking a false step one way, which makes them a step slow getting to where they need to be, which causes an opening, which at the end makes it look worse than it really is. But it's all about the eye candy and the things that the offense is doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think first of all, I would not want to be an inside linebacker in today's college
No.
game. I mean, that's an impossible position. It really is. And so I'm with you there, Stephen. I think we may be asking too much of these guys to be perfect, So let's I think maybe cut them some slack. I mean, there's some great offenses out there. The whole game is geared for the offense to succeed. I
Hmm.
mean, if you talk about the way the rules are made, it's all about the offense. So it's maybe cut the guys some slack and maybe not have such high expectations for defensive teams right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. But
Except for
I.
Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Well, and the truth is, they are a great defense, but they haven't played an offense yet. I mean, who have they played that's going to test them?
Yeah, they're
their
playing a B
best wins
minus.
UAB.
Yeah, they're playing a B minus version of Ole Miss this week.
Right,
Pretty
right. I mean,
much.
so I mean, even though this is really probably their toughest test of the season so far, if I don't know how healthy KJ Jefferson is uh, going into that game, it's still not the type of offense that like an Ole Miss has or an Alabama has. So I just not I'm not trying to say Georgia don't have a great defense, so I don't want people to misunderstand me, but I would like to see them be tested by by somebody else. I mean, we all saw what Alabama did to that Georgia defense last year, and they were a great defense last year. But right now, elite offenses are going to beat elite defenses. It's just the way it is. And so for Georgia to win a championship this year, and I know this game has nothing to do with Georgia, but just while we're on the subject, Georgia has to find explosive plays on offense consistently, and JT Daniels has got to stay healthy.
Big time.
I mean, I think that those two things have to happen for that team to win a championship because when Georgia meets an explosive offense in the college football playoff, are they going to be able to hang with them? That's going to be a question. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast in college football. It's not really Georgia's fault. It's just the way the game is right now.
Yeah, Jacksonville's coming up. We'll get some questions answered
Hmm.
in Jacksonville. Although one of the weakness with Todd Grantham's defense is the ball over the top, and that is one
Oh
thing
yeah,
Georgia can do fairly well.
yeah, yeah. They can do they hit explosive plays, but I just and maybe it's just because, but Kirby, I don't trust. He has yet to prove that he's when the going gets tough in a tight ball game. How is he going to allow the offensive play caller to call plays? I mean,
Exactly.
we've
Exactly.
seen it. We've seen it time after time, and Kirby Smart's a great coach, but he's choked in those big moments by not allowing his offense to open the game up and play. In the 21st century, he plays it too close to the vest in those close games, and it's cost him. It's cost him against Alabama in the 2017 national championship game. It cost him in the 2018 SEC championship game against Alabama.
Fourth and
So
11.
I still have to see Kirby prove that he's going to be willing to let Todd Monken, do what he thinks he needs to do offensively in one of those tight games.
Yeah. If we go to the chat room, Guy Caldwell tweets or chats that Arkansas is going to give them all they want Saturday, and their defense needs to put Daniels on his back a lot in the first. That's a true statement there. And Tim Nicely says eventually you'd think defenses would finally catch up with offenses. You're starting to see that with that drop 8 that's coming through with Arkansas.
Right.
Yeah.
That is starting to happen.
Yeah, I agree, and it takes time, but it's never going to catch up with the offense as long as the rules of the game are in the offense's advantage. I mean, the defense can only do so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really sack a quarterback without getting a flag anymore, especially true in the NFL. I mean, it's ridiculous.
The NFL is almost unwatchable for that reason. I mean,
Right.
like I said earlier, I'm a defensive guy, and you play patty cake with a quarterback, you're gonna get a flag.
And some of the targeting stuff I think is ridiculous as well.
Well, we could go off some tangents on
Yeah.
officiating this year.
Yeah. So. But
Yeah,
it just is
Ole
what it
Miss had
is.
4. There was 4 players ejected for targeting in the
Yeah.
Louisville game.
Ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
Mm.
I mean,
I think that the targeting rule needs to be reevaluated in more ways than one. But the number one thing is, if it's not egregious, the player does not need to be ejected. That is
no.
absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, and I can't, of course, I cannot stand Auburn, but that guy getting ejected in the Penn State game, that was ridiculous. Because I mean, if he don't go low on the guy's going to score, and the object of the game is to keep the other team from scoring. So I mean, what else was he supposed to do there? I just don't understand it. So.
Yeah, let's before we close out this show tonight, let's talk a little bit about the CBS game because this is going away over the next couple of years.
Right.
This will be in the ESPN family, and the 2:30 game is essentially going to disappear because the top game of the weekend might be at 7, it might be at 2:30, it might be at 11. And what people need to get prepared for 11 a.m. kickoffs because networks really like that. But the CBS game growing up, like 2003 when Ole Miss played LSU and got a CBS slot and played that game, it just meant more. I mean, I think that's honestly where it just means more came from, is from that 2:30 slot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know people complain about Kerry Danielson and all that kind of stuff, but as far as like the 2:30 CBS game feels like part of the DNA of the SEC. I mean
Yeah.
that is to me something that, like you mentioned, going all the way back to 2003 when I was probably, I guess, 14 or 15 years old, and at that age you're really into football, and you're really understanding what football means, and how it affects your life, and all that kind of thing. So I just I this 2:30 CBS game, it really means a lot to me. It's I hate that it's going away, and uh, Vern Lundquist. I mean, even though he may have went for a couple years longer than what he probably should have, he is part of the SEC, and always will be. I mean, his great introductions to games. I mean, I remember back when Alabama and Tennessee actually played on the third Saturday in October, and what that meant to play at 2:30 on CBS on the third Saturday in October. It's just, like I said, it's part of the DNA of the SEC, and it's sad that it's going to be going away. And I've always enjoyed the 2:30 kickoffs.
Absolutely, it is sad, and a lot of memories. For the 2:30 slot, it seemed like Alabama got it every single week, especially here lately with Saban. But a lot of people can't stand Gary like you said, but he's part of the SEC just like Vernon was. Brad Nessler's now part of the SEC, and they're inundated in it, and it's just I hate that it's going to be leaving here in a few years.
The first the first 2:30 SEC kickoff game that I remember on CBS was in 1999 when Alabama went to play Florida in the Swamp, Sean Alexander's senior year,
Mm-hmm.
and Alabama won in overtime, I think 40-39. I think Sean McDonough and Todd Blackledge were the
Mm.
commentators back in the
Wow.
day, and uh, I just that just sticks out in my mind. One reason, kind of a crazy fact, that game was played on October 2nd, 1999, and then
Your
this
birthday.
Saturday it's going to be October
Okay.
2nd, of this year, and that's actually my birthday, and I think that's one reason I remember that 1990 game, 1999 game so much is it was on my 10th birthday, and Sean Alexander is my favorite player of all time, and it just he scores that touchdown in overtime, and then Alabama makes the extra point to win in the Swamp. So just a lot of fond memories, like you said, of that CBS game at 2:30. And I hate to see that it's going to be going away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Guy talks about that he hates 11 o'clock
I've,
games.
God, yes,
Uh,
yeah.
Everybody hates 11 o'clock games, but I hate to break it to everybody. ESPN
it's
College Game Day has found a little bit of a formula, and it started
yep,
last week with the Notre Dame Michigan game to where players can be warmed up behind them and things that are going on like that. They're probably going to try and figure out how to do things like that for this Arkansas Georgia game this weekend. And I
exactly.
think we're
Yep.
going to see a fundamental shift in how games are broadcast because honestly, now gates have been going down and down and down, and TV money's going up and up and up, and to where TV money is really calling the shots at this point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you mentioned how game day is going to be doing. I want to say I read that this week in the Arkansas Georgia game, the first what is the program? What 3 hours long? I think the first 2 hours of the program is going to be outside of the stadium, and the last hour of the program of game day is going to be inside of Sanford Stadium. So
Yep.
I'm with you. I think they've kind of found their niche, and it's probably going to be something we see moving forward. And those 11 a.m. kickoffs. I would not want to try to get up and try to play a football game at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it's probably good for hotels and stuff
Right.
Right.
for Friday night, but if you're going to travel, it's probably going to eat in unless you're like right there. If you're like an hour away, if you're in Birmingham, it's probably not going to be that much of a problem getting to Tuscaloosa. But if you're trying to go to Atlanta or somewhere else from Birmingham, it's probably going to be a little bit tougher, and you might just be tempted to catch it on TV.
Yep.
Um, something interesting to say. But guys, I really do appreciate this, and thank you very much for joining us for this little mashup,
Yeah.
doing preview, and it's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I really appreciate you having us on, Stephen. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad that two teams from the SEC and we're fans. We love our schools, and it's good that we can kind of get on here, have a good conversation without anybody hollering and cussing, and just talk about football. It is just a game. I try to remind myself that each weekend. It's just a game. There's a lot more important things going on in life right now. You talked about your situation with your brain surgery, and I'm sure that put perspective on football. Not that you don't love it, and not that it doesn't mean something to you, but there's a lot more important things going on, and I try to remind myself of that each weekend. I try to tell everybody, look, it's just a game. If Alabama loses, it's not the end of the world. You know what you're going to do? You're going to wake up Sunday morning and go about your day. So it's just it's fun that we can get together like this, have a good civil conversation, and just talk about the two schools we love. And I just hope it's an injury free game, and just may the best team win.
Yeah, and don't kick to Jamison Williams.
Yeah,
Kick it
absolutely,
out.
under no circumstances.
Stephen, call Lane and tell him to kick it out of bounds every
Yeah,
time.
seriously, just kick it out of bounds. Just don't even worry. Just don't kick to him.
Oh, man. Yep.
Man, he blew my Southern Miss pick. I said that was too many points, and they're going to give up 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. Oh, come on, USM. Now, USM, by the way, I will say this: USM in 3 years is going to be a team that's pretty good.
Keys is not a bad quarterback. He's just young.
I was actually surprised at how well he played considering the circumstances around that. There's outside of Frank Gore Jr., they don't really have anybody. I think they have a tight end that maybe transferred from an SEC
Arkansas.
school.
He transferred from Arkansas.
Yeah. So they it'll take them a couple of years, but I'm with you. I think they'll be a pretty good team. They played hard and. Defensively going into that game, they were like second in the country against the run. I know they hadn't played elite teams, but I don't care who you play, and you only give up 40 yards rushing a game, which is what they were doing going into that game. That's pretty dang good. So
it is.
But you also saw in that game that it was probably because you could throw all day on them.
Yes, just whatever you wanted to, just whatever you wanted to do in the passing game.
But a good team. Ty Keys, by the way, in high school won 4 straight state titles.
Wow.
That's awesome.
He's a good player. I wanted him to come to Ole Miss, but Lane Kiffin, he knows better than I do. But I was rooting for him to get to Oxford, but Luke Altmaier has a chance to be really good, and of course, with recruiting,
Yeah. Dude, and I can't believe we didn't talk about that. How crazy is that recruitment going to be over the next See, he's just a junior this year, so next 2 years, pretty much, it's going to be wild. So,
I think he's going to commit in February or March.
Okay.
So his recruitment will essentially be over. So it's kind of coming to a head.
Yeah.
But the thing that people don't really notice about his recruitment is going just like Eli's. I mean, exactly down to Ole Miss and Texas being the leaders, the whole 9 yards. And Ole Miss versus Alabama, he's in town. He's going to Ole Miss versus LSU, so he's seeing Ole Miss twice.
Yeah. That's. I would be surprised if he ended up anywhere else besides Ole Miss, but
he's a heck of a player.
He's unbelievable. It's amazing how much he looks like Peyton and Eli, but to me, he looks like Archie. He's very athletic. It's crazy. He has Archie's athleticism with Peyton's size, and it's just. It's crazy how talented that kid is, and he's definitely going to be. I mean, a future.
I'm
maybe
glad.
something doesn't happen, but he should be a number 1 pick in the NFL draft. He's just a phenomenal prospect. So I dread him being at Ole Miss, which is maybe where he's at.
I'm just glad he didn't get Peyton's 5'4" head. So
and good for Cooper, by the way.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
After what he went through, and then you have Peyton and Eli going to all the success and everything. Good for him to have his moment in the sun. Hopefully, he took notes from Archie and Olivia and everything of how to go through this process. William Ricky McKnight says, "Hotty toddy, hey, catch this show on the replay, William. If you're coming in, we're about to go off the air. But thank you for tuning in tonight." But anyway, for Stacy and Jake, who came back and generously donated his time, this has been our Ole Miss Alabama preview and everything. And I want everybody to have a great weekend. I hope the game's well played. I hope everybody stays safe. And I hope most of all, hotty toddy. All right. We'll see you later.
Thanks.
Thanks, David.